Surinder is Shah Rukh, like he's competing with Shah Rukh,
Hmm.
right? Which is an insane sentence that I just said.
Yeah.
But and I think with him, for Vinay Pathak, it's almost like he's tried projecting Salman and Sanjay Dutt and
Yeah.
Dharmendra and the angry young man, and this is what you have to be. And I love that macho scene so much because
Yeah.
they're pointing at the toxic traits and the randomness of what being like macho or masculine means.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember being in the first year of college
Hmm.
and listening to this stand-up by Russell Peters, right, which he does on Indian Men somewhere, and like he talks about how, like him coming to India and watching 11 groups of men walking on a beach holding pinkies, like hand in hand and walking together, and he says he talks about it so condescendingly and like kind of he talks about it in a joke format, right, and it almost makes you like from viewing it from that perspective, it feels like, oh, this is not what a het man or like a straight man is supposed to do. He's not supposed to hold hands with another man at any point of time. But in small town India, that's such a thing, right? Like that's
Yeah.
such an endearing thing, which should be cherished more and more, and like which Bobby and Suri's character kind of brings it to the surface.
Yeah.
But there is also this idea of, which I thought about when I was watching this film, the deconstruction of masculinity in terms of the outer appearances and the body language, right? Like you see the first change in Raj is from the shoes. Like, your first shot which you see is like of
Always the
typical
shoes.
traditional shoes.
Yeah.
The second time when like Suri becomes Raj, you see the shoes changing immediately, right?
Yeah.
But also, so when I watched Vikram Vedha, right, that is where I realized like this is a thing which happens in films, and this is how we buy it into our lives more so, right? When I watched Vikram Vedha, the Saif Ali Khan and Hrithik Roshan one, there is like Hrithik Roshan is brilliant in that film, right? He's like iconic in that role,
Very good.
right? And then there is this song Alcoholia, which is in the film where Hrithik dances like Hrithik does, and like he is beautiful and he is perfect and he's like so many good things. I watched that film and I loved it. I went back home the next day. And like, the next day I watched Vikram Vedha, the original one. And, in that there is like Vijay Sethupathi, like who is not Hrithik Roshan at all. He's like the complete extreme other end of the spectrum. And like then there is this song which is like where Alcoholia was born from, because this was a remake. Like there is this song called as Tassaku Tassaku. And like in that, the way Vijay Sethupathi moves, the way his body moves, I was like, yeah, this is how men party, man. Like this is also what masculinity is.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and it's like so many shades. Like it's like so many times because of the pop culture or like the things that we buy into this certain framework of beauty and masculinity, which is the Hrithik Roshan one. And like everyone aspires towards it and tries to become it, which is perfectly okay and all right. But there is also a space for the Vijay Sethupathis of the world and for them to be themselves. Because in that particular song, Vijay Sethupathi takes it so like, he has such a presence that, I almost felt, like I became a bigger fan of Vijay Sethupathi after watching the two performances, which also reminded me of the iconic Kallu Mama, which in Satya
which was
there.
Great.
It was just men celebrating and being
That's also such
themselves.
a fun representation of masculinity.
In the current context also it comes across. Like, the World Cup just happened.
Yeah.
Right? An Indian cricket team has the Virat Kohlis of the world, which are like, the athletes, the sports person, and like nothing wrong with that. He's like perfect. He's trying to do justice to his role. But then the man of the match of the World Cup was Travis Head, like a big mustache, a normal man, like having probably he's mowing his land like on a Sunday and stuff like that. And like he's still there, right? Like there's space for, the idea is there's space for everyone to be.
I think it's just that comes down to like the burden of responsibility of being a certain way. Like when you feel like you can't be the other things. Like it's not that in masculinity, like you have to be a certain way, or you have to now like songs that you don't like, or you don't have to like movies you don't like. That's fine. But you have to just accept that there's no defined box.
Yeah.
It's not like you have to you have to go to the gym and lift heavy weights to feel like a man.
Yeah.
Like, those are not things, right?
Yeah.
That is as long as we're not putting like defining like signifier, like, this is what it is to be a man. I think that's fine. And Vinay Pathak is an example of that.
You do you question what are the things important for you, and like how are you going to live your life and all of that. And like let it, like speaking of that, like speaking of putting things in the box, one of the things this film tries to do is put that